Welcome to the VRIFY Podcast, a place for game-changing conversations at the intersection of mineral discovery and technology. In this episode, Steve and I are unpacking one of the biggest shifts in exploration, the rise of AI, and how it's transforming not only how we find minerals, but how investors need to think about companies looking for them. I'm Michael Preuss, VP of Marketing here at VRIFY, and joining me today is our CEO and co-founder, Steve DeJong. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I can't believe I got an invite to be on this show. It's incredible.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. This is the first episode. Just to set everybody's expectations, I won't be the host every time. You're not going to have to listen to me on and on and on. We're really going to cater how we present this and put it together based on what the topic is. So today I thought you are just a perfect person. One of the rare individuals who's been on both sides of mineral exploration and leading a tech company.
Thank you. I actually, going into it, I thought I was the host. And
really?
I was interviewing you. So, it's great. Thanks for having me. Let's talk about mineral exploration and tech. It's been it's something that comes up a lot. So I spent my career in mineral exploration. Was part of a company that made a big gold discovery in Quebec. Then we started a technology company that services the mineral exploration and mining side. And it's fascinating to see kind of two very different worlds, the similarities between the two, and actually like how different they are and how similar some parts about them are. It's all about like, it's an entire industry. Both their entire industry is built on essentially selling dreams, whether it's a SaaS product that can go to the moon and be worth billions of dollars, or a plot of land that could, you could drill a hole and find billions of dollars in minerals.
Or trillions.
I
learned today that to Steve DeJong, $1 billion discovery is not a big one. It's got to be $1 trillion.
Well, it's funny because actually one of the observations I have, and this is more on the technology side, is Canadian tech companies, we think a little bit small. And I think that thinking of minerals in the sense of billions is actually not that much. Most deposits, like a small deposit's worth $1 billion.
Right.
And I think we need to think about like, we're going, like mining's a multi-trillion-dollar a year industry. And we need to think about how we approach the problem from a place of like, we need to discover essentially trillions of dollars of minerals.
Mm-hmm. So listen, this morning, you and I met with a VC company. I've been in a few of these with you, and I know you're in several more that I'm involved in. What do you think it is that's drawing this interest from effectively Silicon Valley VC money towards what we're doing at VRIFY, where we're really we're extremely focused on our customer and our clients, which are mineral explorers. Somehow there's some kind of crossover happening. What's your take on that?
So maybe so I think we're doing great things at VRIFY. I think there's also just a ton of interest in sort of this intersection of mineral exploration and AI. It's almost like the entire world has woken up to the fact that we need minerals to do all the things that we do. And at the same time, the geopolitical environment we're finding ourselves in is showing every single country that domestic supply and having line of sight on where those minerals are going to come from for their own individual needs is super important. And then at the same time, you have just AI in general in every industry, not just mining, exploding. So it is kind of a bit of a perfect storm that's happening, that's driving all this investor interest into kind of minerals and AI. And we're really fortunate that we happen to be sitting right at the intersection of that. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've spent my whole career prior to that, like ducking and dodging every bull market and just kind of, let's get involved in this mineral when nobody wants to invest in it and so on. So it's really fun just to be part of it, like be it sort of at the intersection of a very, I would say, popular investor theme. One observation I have in general is, and this is more comparison of mineral exploration and mining and raising capital and meeting investors on that side versus what we're going through, is it's the amount of money is insane, where you can have I bet there's one or two technology funds that would account for all of the investors that sit within the mining space. Never in my life has a mining investor, an institutional mining investor, ever reached out to us to say, we'd like to invest in your company. You go to them, you kind of kiss the ring, and it's an industry that has historically been starved of capital. So in a scenario like that, all of the power and all of the kind of the control point for the sector sits with those who hold the keys to the capital, the investors. Technology is so different. The investors will fly to wherever you are to come meet with you. They'll start chatting with you kind of a year or two ahead of time, and they're just investing much larger amounts of money. That part of it's been fascinating. And as somebody who kind of, you go through your entire career, like, I need to do everything I possibly can to please these investors, and hopefully they will do something for us, which is mining. It's very different in technology, where it's like, I need to find the right capital partner and the right investor that shares my vision of where this company could potentially go. And I have to, and honestly, I have to do it in a very time efficient way, because you can't do your day job if you've got 100 investor conversations going on at the same time.
That's why you had me come into work so early today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But sorry, that's a long-winded answer, which I have a tendency to do to your question about, like, if we look at the conversation we had this morning with like a VC group or a growth equity group, very similar. I find a lot of those conversations from technology investors are they're both trying to understand your own business opportunity, which us and every other technology company, we have our own pitch, our own value prop, but they're also trying to understand the sector that they're investing in, because VC technology growth equity money has not historically invested in mineral exploration or mining. It's literally just something they've never looked at.
Yeah.
So as you saw today, it's almost like a very educational approach. I think in doing so, and I think part of the reasons you wanted to have this conversation, which is a great idea, is what can we share that is kind of like almost like investing in mineral exploration 100, which is the base level of knowledge that we should all have if we're going to invest in the sector. Which I think I've got lots of thoughts on kind of observations and I think things you need to know if you're going to invest in the mineral exploration space or in the technology for mineral exploration space. Let's break it down. This conversation.
Yeah, let's break it down. Let's start with investing in mineral exploration tech, because that's what I understand more, having worked at VRIFY and having watched you walk people through a verified deck. Let's just start from step one of those conversations I know you've had several times. What does someone who we meet with from a growth equity fund or a VC fund, where do you start with them?
One of the things I learned in raising money and running a mineral exploration company, it's really like, a lot of it's just getting your reps in. And the more you do it, kind of you hear yourself and how you answer questions and how you kind of present your story, and it just evolves over time. And I think it's probably been kind of 100 plus now on the tech side. And I think our story and how we talk about what we're doing and how you need to look at our industry has evolved through that experience as well. I think when we sit down and you've sat in through some of these meetings, when we go through, first off, you're just trying to establish credibility. We come from the sector. We built and made a mineral discovery, sold a company. Love talking about how we sold it way too early, because we get really pumped about our $10 million company that was acquired for $600 million. Sounds great. I think kind of we're all looking for that sort of outcome with our tech companies and everything else. Turns out the company now is the asset we sold is now doing $800 million a year. So
someone always knows something.
George, if you're out there, I don't know why you made us sell that thing.
You knew it the whole time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it'd be way easier to run that than it would be to start a SaaS business from scratch. But when going back to it, you're meeting with a tech investor who's trying to understand both your business and the sector. I think the next thing you need to understand is who is the client in this? Like, what is the actual problem you're trying to solve? And what's really important is there's not an unlimited TAM for the mining people out there. That means total addressable markets, right? It's kind of funny because when I first started doing meetings with technology investors, I used to go in these meetings and I would write down acronyms.
Oh yeah.
And then I would leave the meeting and I would check like, oh, what does GRR mean and NRR or like LTV to CAC, LTV to CAC and all of these things. And like, these are very standard terms in the tech sector. And I can tell you all day about like what grams per ton is and
I don't even know.
All of these mineral exploration and mining terms, but I'm starting to get most of them. TAM, which is like, what is the total addressable market? Is for us is it's like 3,000 companies. Like if you take all the mineral exploration and mining companies in the world, it's not that big.
Yeah.
It's big in that it represents a multi-trillion-dollar a year sector, but you have to understand probably 80+% of these companies are also public. And that means that the buying incentive of a public company is different than that of a private company. And similar to tech, 85% are not profitable. And what's different in tech, you have a little bit of revenue, but you might be burning more. In mining, mineral exploration, you don't have any revenue.
It's a drawdown.
You literally are just raising money to explore things, and then hopefully you find enough minerals to get to a point where you can attach a study to it that says it makes economic sense at X price and X discount rate and all of these inputs.
When you describe it that way, it sounds like the global casino.
It is, but to be honest, every industry is the same. Every industry has like the companies that are trying to get to a point where they become real companies. Not to say the mineral exploration companies aren't real companies. Long story short, though, if you think about it through the lens of the buyer, like of these mineral exploration companies, there aren't infinite buyers. So you better nail it with them. They're all public, which means they're not only beholden to whatever their vision and execution strategy is, they're also beholden to their investors and their share price on any given day. So ultimately they need to make decisions that are based on not just things that help their business and have like a strong value proposition, but things that they can communicate to their investors as helping their business. Because as a public company, you almost have that like instant feedback loop.
Yeah.
Where the decisions you make, the strategic decisions you make or so on, it's not like a year from now we'll find out if they're good. You'll press release them and find out in 24 hours how the market sees them.
Makes me think of when Amazon acquired Whole Foods. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but let's say they acquired Whole Foods for $4 billion. Their share price went up that day after earnings. That increased their total market cap by $10 billion.
Yeah.
So by making the acquisition, not only did they get the asset, they increased their enterprise value.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer, like that is exactly what we are striving as a business to achieve. When we can build the credibility of our brand and mineral exploration and mining companies use our tool, that from the day they sign up and tell the world that they're signed up and using it, they get that instant gratification where people say, your company is now, I value your company more, or your share price is higher today than it was yesterday because your company plus VRIFY has a higher probability of
exponential value.
And we're not there yet. Like we have a lot of work to do to get there, but like when we think about what we want to achieve as a business, we want to become the tool that unlocks the potential of the business. And then again, the fact that these companies are public is a really unique dynamic of the sector because it unlocks immediate potential.
Yeah.
If people see value, they can invest immediately. It unlocks your ability to raise capital for your business. There's a whole knock-on effect that just doesn't happen in the private space.
But so a lot of it being in the private, let me interject, being in the private space, to your point earlier about us, not being there to say just by partnering with us, it will raise your valuation. Because we're in a private space, we can say that and no one can challenge us on it, which we're going to talk about a little bit later around a bit of the fluff in AI and some of the claims that are being made.
Fluff in AI.
Yeah. Not for
Every AI pitch is real.
For sure. No ChatGPT wrappers. Yeah. No ducks paddling really hard underwater.
Just kidding for anyone who's...
But I want to let's curve it back. Like I'm tracking to that question of those steps.
Yeah,
that we're going through. So you've landed credibility just through what you said. Like you just kind of shift into the mode. I don't know if you see this in yourself. You might see it if you watch this, though I doubt either of us will watch this because we'll have to hear our own voices. But you do shift into the mode where you're just educating the potential investor on what mineral exploration is.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to do this podcast, because the more people who understand this, the more people are going to understand the value.
So how would you, as you've been less than a year with your first,
felt longer,
not just for you, with your first real exposure, like you're in Vancouver, so you obviously we're all one kind of connection removed from somebody who's in the mineral exploration or mining sector.
Yeah.
But what's your view on like what is mineral exploration and how has that changed in the last year?
Yeah.
Somebody who comes from a tech background.
Great question. I wouldn't have known the difference between mining and mineral exploration going in. Even with my father-in-law, who I've known since I've known my wife, obviously, but for 15 plus years, he runs a mineral exploration company.
Yeah.
I know that he didn't mine.
Yeah.
And I knew that mining dump truck wheels are gigantic.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it ended for me. I just knew that was...
Everyone has a photo. Everyone in the entire industry has a photo of themselves next to it.
Yeah, I've learned that's a trope. And so where I'm at now is I clearly understand the differentiation. And as someone who did front-end engineering for 10 years, we would always, like, the main front-end engineering languages, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I would probably meet with someone like you, like even now, but maybe even before you started doing tech, and you would maybe know that JavaScript was a thing, like it was kind of a cool language, kind of like Python is now.
Yeah.
And you might inadvertently shorten it to Java to sound like hip. But Java and JavaScript are a completely different language.
Yeah.
Right? It's like French and Japanese. Like, sure, they both communicate. They're both programming languages. So we would always say Java to JavaScript is like ham to hamburger. Both meats, but like not really related.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite as extreme with mining to mineral exploration, but I think of that ham to hamburger thing with...
Well, one little nuance that comes up a lot is not most mineral exploration or all mineral exploration companies are not miners, but all miners, like anyone who's mining being actually, you already found it and you're extracting it out of the ground. Yeah. You're always exploring.
Completely different scale.
Yes, but you're always exploring. So if you think of something, what is your TAM? Or who are you going after? Everybody, even the miners, everybody's always exploring, but not everybody's always mining.
Right.
Because if you have a mine, you need to find more of it because at some point it's going to run out.
Yeah. And you've already done the capital investment in that infrastructure. Yeah. It's more efficient to find around where you are than have to restart operations.
I had a fascinating conversation yesterday. So it was with a multi-billion-dollar technology investor, and it was with a private mineral exploration company that we work with. And we're kind of testing with them if we partner and create the right structure with this company, can we create sort of like a tech-enabled mineral exploration company or a technology company that happens to be looking for minerals? And if we do it right, does that company now become a potential investment for a technology investor that would historically never look at a mineral exploration company?
Right.
And for a whole bunch of reasons, it was a 2-hour conversation. The fascinating part is I got to play moderator between the geologist executive who has an incredible track record in the sector and somebody who's a technology investor who's kind of like peripherally looking at the space the same way you look at any sector, but no actual expertise in it. And it's almost like moderator is probably not even the right word, it's translator, because having kind of a foot in both worlds now, it's like, well, it's the mineral exploration executives talking about grams per ton and 15 grams per ton.
Yeah, which I've seen in so many tables, and I understand G to ton, but I'm like, what?
And essentially, and all of us in the sector, 15 grams per ton, you say, wow, that's actually really a high grade deposit. That's incredible.
Yeah, which
is grams per ton is think of it like 15 grams per ton would be about half an ounce. An ounce of gold is worth today about $1,600 US. ton of rock would be about this big by this big by this big. So it's essentially $1,600 of material. It's $1,600 rock. It costs maybe $150 to take out that rock. So if you think of it from a software perspective, it's like having a 90% margin. If you can find something that costs $150 out, you can sell it tomorrow for $1,600.
Right. Or even you even worded it. We were talking about it earlier, and you worded it as dollars per ton.
Yeah.
Or just kind of connecting what both worlds are, the language of both worlds. This is what I was so interested in having this conversation with you, and why, I don't need to pump your tires too hard, but
let's go ahead.
Why I thought you'd be such a good, unique insight. Not a lot of people, very few people are doing what you're doing, and being able to be in meetings and nod when people are saying TAM and GRR, and then looking it up, both having the humility to do that and the confidence to just figure it out. But now that translator word, I think, is perfect. Now you have this ability to sense, with the people you were talking to yesterday, looking and seeing on their face the geologist talking about grams per ton, and sort of what does that mean? And the language to translate what they're saying to what he needs to hear.
And it's it's almost like a second order benefit of the work that we're doing. Like, ultimately, we're taking these meetings because we want investors to invest in VRIFY and give us a multi-billion-dollar valuation and be a super successful tech company, and then use the money they give us to be like the most disruptive mineral exploration AI company in the world. Mm-hmm. Let's not kid that that's our objective. What we're learning through those conversations, we're realizing we're now able to share with our clients and actually become this bridge almost in how
to a coach.
Yeah, exactly. And both, like in this conversation I was in yesterday, I told both parties in it, this is a science experiment. I have no idea if I'm introducing two individuals that just have completely different mandates, would just be oil and water and just not mix whatsoever. And both of them walked away like that was fascinating. So I'm convinced, and again, this is like different from our core business. I think there's a role for us to play in it, but I'm convinced that there's a whole bunch of money that is waking up to the fact that minerals are super important. And then there's a whole bunch of people doing some really incredible things, finding those minerals, but have been restricted by a very, very small pool of capital. Mm-hmm. It's not just like we need more translators in rooms, because if everybody could speak the same language, it's also where kind of our technology and technologies like ours, I think, are going to be the bridge that makes that happen. Because I do believe fundamentally, and this guys kind of goes to the next part of like the pitch and that we give, is like, how is our technology game changing? I fundamentally believe that our technology and just technologies that use the massive amount of underutilized data within the mineral exploration sector are going to unlock the next wave of mineral discoveries like nothing the world has ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons it's so exciting and what we get most excited about is I think that those discoveries are just sitting there waiting. We don't need the fancy new devices and technologies and to go to the far corners of the earth. We literally just need to look in the data sets that we already have, and within that, through a lens and an AI lens that can process massive quantities of data at the same time, we're going to see things that we never would have seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that point, seeing things a different way. I was making that connection when you were being the translator between the two parties you were just describing, is you're saying things a different way, which is helping two different people see things in a different way. That's in the financing side. And then in the exploration and the discovery side, it's searching for things in new ways.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about us or the industry thinking that all the easy stuff has been found. And that means we have to go to the far corners of the earth. And I just love hearing you get a little riled up on your take on that, which sort of indicates a little bit of perception.
Just makes me so angry. Minerals are everywhere, right? And but there is a benefit to finding minerals, in safe jurisdictions,
Mm-hmm.
in predictable jurisdictions. And by that, I mean places where, you can permit them, where you're not going to wake up tomorrow and someone's going to be like, actually, that's my mine now, not your mine. And also there's a huge benefit to finding minerals close to other mines. Not only is it much cheaper and much easier to find labor, it's also the environmental impact
Mm-hmm.
of an area that's already been heavily impacted. It's a much smaller environmental impact. This isn't to say that there isn't tons of mineral potential in those kind of far out places. I think there is. And I think those are actually really exciting frontiers, and we learn a lot from going to them. But the underlying concept and thesis or statement that all of the easy ones have been found, I just fundamentally disagree with. And a big part of that, I think, is to make that statement, you have to be saying that we as an industry have used every piece of data the best possible way and looked at it through every kind of lens we possibly could. And we've done the best possible job of doing that. And that's why we can only go to new places to find new things. And I just don't think we have. I don't think we haven't had, it's not a criticism of the sector. It's an example you gave earlier, which I really like, is thinking about like Netflix. And if you had the concept of Netflix 15 years ago, great, doesn't matter because there's no bandwidth. It's not going to work on dial-up internet. It's not a criticism of the idea. It's just the kind of the where technology is at that place and time. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Mineral exploration has been stuck in this sort of low bandwidth environment. And now that, like, if you think of AI and compute power and what we're able to achieve now, you have to almost re-underwrite how you think about mineral exploration as a whole. And those big data sets that we just never had the compute power or the ability to process all at once, we now have that power. And in doing so, we can move from a place of using 2% of the amount of data that exists to using 90 to 100% of that data. And within that, you're going to make some massive discoveries. Mm-hmm. The best example I can give is like in Quebec, the Lamaque project. Val-d'Or is a mining community of 40,000 people. It exists because there's the Sigma mine and the Lamaque mine, two of Canada's largest gold mines. They started in the early 1900s. The whole reason the town is there is because of these two mines. It's turned into there's all kinds of mines in the area and so on. One was owned by Teck, one was owned by Placer Dome, two of Canada's largest mining companies. And in 2003, about 10 years or so after the Lamaque mine was shut down, all of the ground around it, about a 5-kilometer area, was sold for, I think it was a few $100,000. That was the ground that we ended up making the Triangle discovery in. The Triangle discovery, I think it sits, I haven't checked recently, it's about 4 million ounces. It's generating $800 million a year, kind of 500 employees and kind of another 2,000 indirectly employed people from it. Mm-hmm. You had literally hundreds of millions, probably $1 billion in data that was collected over that period of time that could have been used and to identify like where the Triangle deposit is. The company that bought Triangle has made another discovery. It is sitting 100 meters away from the old mines. It is incredible how much is sitting right under their noses. The reason it was never discovered is because it was sitting under a swamp. Right. And so there wasn't anything at surface for anything to look at. And we discovered that without AI, but we've kind of, if you go back and look at all of that data and put yourself in the shoes of Teck selling this project in 2003 through a lens of like, let's do a full analysis with every piece of data to find out what we're actually selling. Mm-hmm. I guarantee, and we can go back and look at some of that data now, you're going to see, you would see something. And I just think there are so many things like that in the sector, whether these big data sets that we just don't fully utilize. And within them, lurking just below the surface, is just an entire wave of big discoveries about to be made. So I'd say going back to it, I still think like the far off greenfields exploration in the new jurisdictions is still really important. Mm-hmm. And we're continuing to see discoveries be made. But I think we're wrong in that, I would say, patting ourselves in the back that we found all of the low-hanging fruit out there and we just need to go to these far-off places.
Right.
Yeah. And I think like all of these countries, like every country right now is looking to secure domestic supply of these minerals and so on. I don't think we should be doing that through a lens of we've exhausted our own country's supply of minerals, we should go elsewhere. I don't think there's anywhere in the world better than, like, as an example, Canada, to look for minerals.
Agreed. Yeah, we want to secure our supply chains in this time of sort of, disturbance. Supply chain starts with discovery or exploration.
Disturbance, is that that's
my PC
politically safe word to use to describe the current geopolitical environment?
Yeah, we'll get into, I don't want to sway my opinions too much yet. It's the first episode. I think
you don't want to upset those 3 viewers you have.
Let's get our LinkedIn likes out.
2 of which are my parents.
Yeah. Well, they're really nice to me. I feel like we've transitioned from you kind of describing what you go through to all of the VC and growth funds who are watching this, which there's thousands. This is immediately skyrocketed to one of the most popular podcasts. I think we're the #1 mineral exploration podcast this far in.
I don't think I've answered your question yet. I just keep pitching.
But I think you've done it.
Pitching what you do.
I know, but I'm going to tell you, I think you've done it. Like, I think if the next person we're going to take a meeting with, if they watch this, we're going to start from a way further along spot, like not from zero. And what I'm interested in kind of getting our conversation to curve towards, because I just know the hot buttons. Like, I know you can get going on one, and it's fun to listen to and watch. What would the investor want to be thinking of when they're starting to think of mineral exploration, AI technology? And maybe if you could sort of put a duality to it, the investor and a mineral exploration company, because so many companies need to have an AI strategy now. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. We know that investors who are investing in commodities aren't stopping at just asking what you found. They're asking, how did you find it? Which then brings it back to the mineral exploration CEO or the VP of exploration that needs to make a decision. Do we want to integrate AI technology into our operations? Usually the answer is going to be yes, or let's look into it. What should they be looking for in taking those meetings? Like, they're going to meet with you. You're going to tell them we've got the best thing. They're going to meet with company X. They're going to say, no, our thing's the best thing. How do they know what's the cheat sheet, maybe check boxes they should be listening to that's going to actually make an impact, a material impact on their business as fast as possible?
So you mean from when looking at a mineral exploration technology business, or as a mineral exploration business?
As a mineral exploration business, I know that this AI thing is happening.
Yeah.
I'm seeing companies like Rua Gold, who we work with.
Yeah. Great name drop. Great team.
Yeah. Doing great work. We're seeing them make discoveries. We don't want to be left behind. We know that looks like an unfair competitive advantage.
Yeah.
We're not ready to jump. I think you've used this language, like first to be last.
Yeah. First to be second.
Yeah. As an industry. But we need to jump on this.
Yeah.
What should I be? How do I know which one?
Yeah.
Because the layer on top of that is the investor wants to know so that we are a verified.
Yeah, because it's kind of the same thing. Like, how do I, like, if it's an investor looking at investing in a mining technology company, how do I know that it's your mining technology and not the other 10?
Exactly.
And if I'm a mineral exploration or mining company, how do I know that I should work with you and not someone else who's saying they do the same thing as you as well?
Yeah, it's that capital goes where capital grows.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one, actually. So I think it's super cliche to say everyone needs an AI strategy, but hey, everyone actually does need an AI strategy. There's a couple things within that. So I think as an investor, this is more just my opinion as someone who actually invests in mineral exploration as well. mineral exploration companies make the mistake of, here's my project. I have 1 million ounces of gold. It should be worth $4 an ounce. So I'm a $4 million company. And the reality is people aren't investing in what you already have. Like, I personally think dollars per ounce is a really, really poor metric to think about valuation of a company.
Yeah, it sounds like a race to the bottom kind of.
Well, and it's saying, like, fundamentally, if I'm going to invest in you, I'm going to invest in something that I think is going to be worth tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll put it in a GIC.
Mm-hmm.
So if your whole valuation is, or thesis is like, I'm worth X, it's like, great, but like, I want to know how you're worth more tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's the same as when a mineral exploration company puts out results and they say, these are our last results of the season. Doesn't matter what they are. Essentially, they're saying, like, you may as well go do something else with your money and come back in 9 months when we have more results, because
Mm-hmm.
things won't be changing between now and then. To your point about a question that I think is being asked more and more, it's not just what do you have, it's how did you, like, it's not just what did you discover, what do you have, it's how did you discover it. And I think what's within that question is what an investor is trying to figure out is what is the repeatability of this? Like, what is the future potential that you'll be able to find more of whatever you did? And it's one of the really important things that we find in working with our clients. It's not just about here's a target. It's about using technology to identify and almost fingerprint what you already know, so you can see where else that target exists. And if you do that effectively, what you can say is, I do have 1 million ounces of gold here. Here's how it looks through an AI lens. Here are 4 other things that have similar characteristics, because what you're starting to do is kind of, here's the repeatability and the growth profile of if this AI turns out to be successful.
Wow.
The equivalent in the industry today is like a map with circles on it. Like, there's more of these things over here. We're going to go test them. So I think that's more, I would say, an observation of someone who actually invests in the sector as well. I've spent, like, prior to Integra Gold, I was the IR person for a group of 9 companies, and I literally would write 2 press releases a day. So I spent my when I first came into the sector, it was literally just writing press releases. So I would run all kinds of A/B style testing,
right,
on these things to, like, try wording things different ways. And I think it's really important that companies communicate the future potential and how they're going to get there. And that's something that a technology investor is very familiar with. Like, what is the predictability of your revenue? What is the growth profile of your revenue? How do you get from where you are today and grow it? Like,
which goes back to that translator point we were talking about. Like, you're interpreting the potential of our client's asset area that they've got the mineral rights to how can I communicate it into a way that lands as ARR, increasing ARR.
Yeah.
But the mineral exploration industry isn't thinking that way, when in reality, every hole drilled is like an investment that the VC person is making in a company.
Yeah.
And if they invest in 100 companies, or you drill 100 holes, you're hoping one strikes gold to pay and make profit on all of them. So in fact, their businesses are extremely related.
Totally. If you think of, like, a company is like a SaaS company is going to raise some money, put it into a marketing campaign and try to increase its revenue. A mineral exploration company is going to raise some money, drill a hole, and try to increase its resource base. Yeah. It's actually very
same business.
It's kind of similar in a lot of ways. But again, going back to it, the company that says, hey, we've got X, it's great. It's kind of like saying I'm a SaaS business with kind of no growth profile in some ways. That's great that you make $10 million a year, whatever it is, but it's your growth profile that your valuation comes from, not your underlying business. But sorry, going back to the initial, like, what is the differentiator? Like, what if I'm a company and if I'm a mineral exploration or mining company and I'm thinking about, I need AI, so I'm already convinced, everyone out there, you do need an AI strategy. You might not believe it all yet, and you're right in that there's a lot of AI fluff out there, but 100% everybody needs to be thinking about, hey, how AI is going to change your business. How do you separate them? And the same from a technology investor, how do I look at the different AI technology businesses and assess which ones are real and which ones aren't? It's really hard to do. all of us are saying we're the best thing since sliced bread.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. Our business at VRIFY, we are fundamentally and deeply, deeply focused on technical expertise. And by technical, I mean like geologists and geophysicists working side by side with data scientists to really understand how you can get the most out of your data. And then the next layer on top of that is how can AI see things within that data? And then how can a team of very technical people interpret that in a way that can actually make sense and add value to?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I will kind of bet the farm on this. It's going to be determined by who has the most success. Like who actually can say, I drilled this target that VRIFY AI or this AI company gave me that I wouldn't have known about otherwise, and it resulted in a big discovery or finding minerals.
Which we had yesterday.
Which we have, to be honest, we have a series of. I don't think we're as loud as we could be, but we don't need to be, because I think it's really important that, like, you are seeing a lot of, it's almost every day we're seeing AI, I don't want to say discoveries being made, but like indications that this is the next big AI thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our view is like, we just want to come up with a series of case studies that just are complete quantifiable proof, and it works. And every day we're getting more and more proof points. Everybody wants the drill hole that results in the massive discovery. And I think we are going to see that. But what people don't talk about, and to be honest, it's not as sexy, is the AI insight that you give to a technical team that then realizes, hey, I can take that AI generated geophysics survey that you did, and which over an area where I didn't have geophysics, and go now prioritize in my budget doing a geophysics survey over that area because it looks interesting, but I want a higher level of confidence. There's all these little tiny wins within it that you only...
is where I think we should stop for a sec for you to dig into that a bit more, because I know that the geologists and the people from mineral exploration are tracking what you just said.
Yeah.
And I think they'll understand the value of what you're talking about to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But I know that the VC or the engineer or the growth equity funds, of which there's probably now 25,000 listening, this thing is really
crazy.
It's crazy.
I get nervous.
Can't believe being a part of this. I don't think they understand what you're saying at all. Maybe to tee them up, to prick the ears up, generative data.
Yeah.
Generative
That's a good point.
Content. Synthetic.
So I have a project that's 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers wide. And so I have 100 square kilometers. And I have a budget of $1 million. And as much as I'd like to just go drill holes, I don't know a drill hole is 3 inches wide. Mm-hmm. So I got to be very kind of intentional with where I put my budget for a drill hole. Okay. So I do geophysics. So geophysics would be flying a plane over or a drone over, and it's going to check how magnetic the rocks are or how conductive the rocks are. I don't have enough money to do it for my whole property. So I will do it for a small portion of the property. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I'm in Canada, and the government has paid for all kinds of like regional geophysics. Regional being, instead of the flight lines being 25 meters apart, they're a kilometer apart. So really low resolution, but enough.
Something to work.
So there's something there. So I do my little survey in my little corner, and it seems kind of interesting because I know what I'm looking for, has this type of magnetic signature, but I'm fully blind on the rest of my property.
So you have this high definition data set that you've paid money for. And then you've got this, sticking with TV terms, the standard definition or black and white indication type data, but it's not even close to the resolution.
Totally. So you have a natural bias to go and find something in the high resolution area.
Because you paid money for it.
Because you paid money for it. You were the one probably as the exploration manager that said we should do it in this area. So you want to be right.
Yep.
So you're naturally likely going to find drill targets within that. That's normal. When I talked about re-underwriting how we think about exploration, we have to do it from a place that uses every single piece of data. We have a predictive algorithm that can generate models of where to drill, but we also have a series of steps we take along the way where you take that small survey, you use every little bit of satellite imagery, regional geophysics, soil geochemistry, every single piece of data, and you actually think of it like the Adobe infill feature, where I have a picture of Michael but
Yeah.
then I just want to make it bigger, and it fills in a bookshelf and some other stuff behind.
Yeah.
So what it does is we generate a geophysical survey for your entire property, and we correlate it back to the first. So you can test it and see, is it sort of 90% accurate? Is it 40%? And so on. Ultimately, like we've shown this before, and like a true geophysicist purist will yell at you and say, like, that's voodoo. You can't do that. You need to fly the plane and collect the actual data. The reality is, would you rather have zero information over an area, or something that there's a margin of error within, but you have some data?
Yeah.
The output of that is you'll see things in that data that might not meet the threshold to go invest in a drill hole, but they will tell you where to go spend a little bit more money on a detailed geophysics survey.
Yeah, to disprove the hypothesis.
Totally.
Yeah,
So,
and it's interesting. I hadn't thought of that angle of where you've spent the money, you're going to have confirmation bias. And we've talked a lot about how what's great about AI is it doesn't have feelings that we know of. I don't know. We probably will be killed by it. But
I'm one of those people that's still like nice to ChatGPT.
We're Canadian, so
because someday it's going to be the overlord that
it's going to reread through everything and be like,
and I'll be like, that guy was really kind to me.
Yeah.
While Michael's kind of rage typing, trying to get the right answer.
You're still
sorry.
It'll evaporate me, but you'll still be riding a bike powering the battery, so it's not much better. What you were just saying also about sort of the geologists letting go a little bit of the way that it had to be done and loosening the bounds a little bit about how exploration might happening. I've never made this connection before, but like, are we kind of inventing vibe exploration, like vibe coding? Because a lot of the engineering teams that I'm working with are very resistant. They wanted it to be beautiful code, but now I'm seeing them shift to them saying, well, if the computer ingests the code and reads the code and the computer writes the code, why does it have to be beautiful for me?
Yeah. Where
I can write so much faster if I just sort of vibe code with these AI co-pilots and let it happen. The outcome is
so I'm gonna pause there and take the other side, in that for all of the geologists and geophysicists that have tuned into Michael's podcast, what vibe coding is, is vibe coding is essentially giving a prompt of an idea or a vibe and not actually typing the code. It's having AI generate the code for you. And your coding purists, I think, have trouble with that, because ultimately it's doing whatever it needs to do to make the output look like what you're trying to describe. Whereas like the code can be a jumbled mess, but it kind of doesn't care, because ultimately it works. And vibe coding is, I think, where the difference between vibe coding and traditional coding is you can put in a prompt and you can have a working app in literally minutes now. And it's actually, I think there's been this negative connotation to, or view of vibe coding
from hardcore engineers, but from people who want to move fast. The cliche, move fast and break things, but also it's in breaking things, knowing where you got to fix them. You actually get from point A to point B faster,
way faster.
Like the skateboard.
You just have to accept the fact that like the first version of it isn't going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But would you rather have, it's like me when I created a PowerPoint. It's way easier if someone starts it and I edit it than me trying to start from scratch.
Who's starting all those for you?
I know.
Is it?
But it
was an AI.
Going back to it, it's a fascinating thing, and if you want to, it's like people are going to hate that term.
I know,
vibe exploring.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about
like two non-geologists talking about vibe exploring. Like if there's going to be one more controversial,
I just saw the viewers tick up to 10 million. This is amazing.
But it's a fascinating way to think about it, because all we're trying to do, like the nice thing we have about exploration more than any other sector that's being disrupted, is ultimately you're going to drill a hole and know if you were right or wrong.
Yeah.
And there's a truth stick, and it's
great.
It's very binary. Even coding.
Yeah.
You can kind of get a result, but someone else could kind of get a different result, and you don't know if it's going to work until it's like tested in certain environments. Mm-hmm. We know when we drill that hole, is there gold in it or not? Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting way to think about it, and I actually think it is a really good analogy of how exploring the mineral exploration needs to go in general, because ultimately what you're going to do is, again, if you think of that area, you have detailed geophysics versus a project that's 10 times the size. what you're allowing yourself to do is cover a much bigger area.
And you make lower risk decisions. You're de-risking where you're actually going to start to deploy your capital and decide where you're going to slow down your project. Because with AI, you can move so much faster. Say you didn't run that high def mag survey to start. You just use Canada's larger publicly available. Our AI software might tell you it's actually in the top left instead of the bottom right where you did it. So you got to that a lot faster. Whereas I know the person who probably decided bottom right did it in a traditional method, which is a little bit more time consuming.
Yeah.
So you're moving faster by shrinking the timeline. Yes, you're making a lot of assumptions. And I know that's very challenging to the traditional geoscience geologist mindset. But if you look at the time horizon in the same span, you still have time to do proper geology work.
Totally.
To validate, to get to that point that you're talking about, that moment of truth with.
Yes, you have more time.
Yeah, you could cut it in half and still do just as much.
Yeah.
Vibe exploring.
Yeah, that's gonna.
My father-in-law's gonna love that.
People are going to hate that. That's great. That's the first and last episode of the.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure having you. We've just passed 400 million people who are tuned in.
I think kind of going back to it though, like what everyone needs to understand about mineral exploration is just a treasure hunt. That's all it is. All you're doing is trying to use as much evidence as you have and collect data, and then ultimately to find minerals. And that's all that's all the industry really is. That's why it's like mining to me is mining's cool, but that's more like optimization of how to get things out of the ground. Mm-hmm. Mineral exploration is like, that's fun. That is like where you can see a company 10x overnight if they go and find the minerals. And overall, what we're trying to do is in like a deeply technically built product and team, give something that gives you a better chance of finding those minerals.
Mm-hmm. We've done the research, in the marketing team, because when we make claims, we want to make sure they're backed. Even though we're private, we can say anything. We work, like you said, in a fixed small TAM environment. It's relationship driven. If we lose the trust of our clients or the industry, this is the kind of environment where you're done and done forever. You don't really get a second chance. So in our research, with multiple sources confirming, 99% of data goes unused, whereas under 1% of mineral exploration projects actually become economically viable. It's such a beautiful number, 99 and 1. That's 100%. You said earlier, and I looked it up earlier for something else, $2.4 trillion is what mineral exploration was valued at globally, mining total in 2024. So again, these are very broad numbers, but if we can go from 99% with a less than 1% discovery rate to 90% is unused, which means 10. Now we're going from 1%.
Let me break that down a little bit. When we say, like, I think it's when someone says, well, 99% of the data is not used.
I'm talking to the VCs here, but you're going to talk to the geos, because I think they would just look at me and say, cool marketing guy. But
yeah,
I know where you're going. And
like literally what they've been saying this whole conversation.
They tuned out. We're actually listening to.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah.
99% as an example, you are doing geochemistry. So you're checking for how much you're taking soil. So you're taking dirt, and you send a bunch of students or interns out, and every 25 meters, they pick up a chunk of dirt and they put it in a little bag and they put a GPS, and then they send it to a lab. And then you end up with these dots all over your property of where these samples are taken from. They send it to the lab and they assay for what kind of metals. And I'm looking for gold or copper on my project. So I would then get the results back from the lab, and I would look at the results, and I would say gold and copper. It's kind of interesting. When the assay lab sends the results back, they typically, depending on what you ask for, I think it's 48 types of minerals or elements they would assay for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using 2 of the 48.
Right.
Whereas,
the others?
what about the others? And if you think about it, as a human, you can't go look through 48 layers of data in a complex layered map and understand like what is the relationship between selenium and arsenic or whatever it is. The human brain just can't do it. So when we say we're not using the data, it's not from a place of like, oh, we just throw it in the garbage and don't care about it.
Not at all.
It's literally from a place of we have not had the processing capability as an industry to be able to process it.
Yeah. So out of necessity, we have only used 1%.
Yeah, because it's not possible
of the human brain.
And because when we say it like we only use 1% of the data, it sounds really irresponsible. The other thing though is what we don't do is we don't spend a lot of time with historic data. And like the best place to find a mine, they've always said, is in the shadow of a head frame.
What's a head frame?
Head frame is like a big building that's got a hoist on it where like your mining elevator, we'll call it, goes up and down.
Okay.
It's what it's saying is kind of, if you found minerals already, the best place is
probably around here.
Probably around there. But anyway, even if what you're looking for, there's not something right next door, there's likely a similar type deposit with a bunch of data you could train off and learn from and then apply to the data set that you have. But again, we don't typically do that. Like, there's just often so much historic data that it becomes overwhelming. We can't, as an individual, go through that and digest it all at once. So you get to a point where you kind of max out on how much data you can take, and the incremental piece of data is not that much of value add. AI doesn't have that problem. More data, the better. It can just keep kind of going and going and going. So you can give it every little piece. Like, we're working on one project right now in Quebec. And I think the learning points we have, and a learning point is an assay. So what you do is you take all of the assays. An assay is, if I drill 200 meters into the earth, every meter I would take an assay from. So I would have 200 individual assays. Each of those assays has 50 elements that we assayed for. On one project, I think we have 12 million points.
Wow.
And so you can imagine, no human could ever take 12 million points and then try and correlate.
Take 1 million.
And take every individual point and then say, like, this is the geophysical signature and the geochemistry signature and the ratio of geochemistry and the satellite and the topography. And every single one of those points has its own unique, and then kind of find a pattern amongst that. It's just not possible.
Yeah,
so
well, that's where your whole point of the next big discovery is in the shadow, or is in lurking in the data.
Totally. But to your point about 99, I just want to clarify that we're not saying it from a place of 99% of data isn't used. Again, it's from a place of it's not possible to use it until now. The other one you gave is 1%, which is a fully different statistic. 1% of projects turn into mines. I think it's actually closer to 0.1%, like 1 in 1,000 end up actually becoming a mine. 1% turn into like a feasibility stage project. I actually don't know where it is. Ultimately, it's a really, really small number. And what the thesis we're trying to test, which is if we can go from using 1% of the data to using 50, 90% of the data.
I was thinking 10. I like that you're shooting that high.
What is that? Well, that's the data usage side. I think we can. There's no reason we shouldn't.
We can use 100%.
There's no reason we shouldn't use 100% of the data. What does that do to the 1% or 0.1% success rate in the sector?
To get this back on the rails, we covered some really good ground. Let's take it back to, what should a mineral exploration company be looking for success factors in their AI solution? Because I believe through this conversation, actually, you've convinced me that what a mineral exploration company is looking to hire for is very similar to what a VC or growth fund is looking to invest in. So can you sum up, what are those things that make a solution the winner?
Yeah, because I think you're right. It kind of is the same thing. Like, if a mineral exploration company is looking at 10 different mineral AI exploration tech solutions, and a VC or growth fund wants to kind of deploy capital in the space, you want the best. Like, there's no way around that. So I'll give you an answer. You can determine if it's sort of everything leads towards verify or not. You and I may have a little bit of bias.
There's a little bias, but we have information others don't. There's information asymmetry here.
But I honestly, I think there's things that we're really good at, and I think there's things that other groups are good at. So I'll try my best to give you an honest answer to it. I think, so for us specifically, we view success ultimately as we want companies to make discoveries. We view our marketing and our sales strategy from a place of like, if companies make discoveries,
real easy.
They're going to put out press releases because they love bragging about discoveries, and they're going to talk about how great this verify kind of generated discovery was. They're going to tell all their peers at conferences how great we are. So ultimately, we view it from a place of how do you help companies make discoveries? To help companies make discoveries, you need to have the best solution. Why do we think that, or what do we think makes the best solution? Getting your reps in is such an important one. Like we have 40 clients now that use our AI solution and work closely with us. And what that means is when we work with them, we train individual algorithms on whether it's a porphyry system or an orogenic gold system or an epithermal system, whatever mineral system they're in. We're continually training models that look for exactly what they're looking for, that have been trained on a global data set of information. All of that data is anonymized, so there's no kind of risk of cross-pollination of data or data leakage or anything like that. But also what we're finding, it's simple to say like, whoever has access to the biggest proprietary data set is going to have the best algorithm. What we're learning is when you stick a team of geologists and geophysicists and data scientists into a meeting with a company and you explain to them what AI saw in their project and how that aligns with their own view of the project and where the differences are, and you get that feedback cycle, and then you do it again and again and again, your team actually, that's the same team that's going back to help kind of tweak the algorithm and tweak the process and tweak what we do with the data. That team is a massive asset in themselves, and there's no one in the world that's anywhere close to what our team is doing. Not only are we spending tens of millions of dollars in kind of building the team and the research behind it, but it's hard to put, it's hard to quantify what that experience does. When I work with you and you've got an orogenic gold system and a whole bunch of data, and then next week I go and work with another one, and the next day it's another one. Every single conversation I'm going into, I'm more experienced. So you have a team of people that are essentially like the world's most experienced AI mineral exploration experts. And they're the ones that are creating the software solutions that these companies are using. So ultimately, like, I think you're going to judge a company like ours or as a potential investment or as a potential partner that you're going to work with by the success that they have, and ultimately, like, what is the time to value in working with them? And I can guarantee any company that sits down with our team, you're going to get insights right out of the gate that are going to, probably some of it will make sense to you, and some of it's really going to challenge how you think about your own project. But ultimately, I think I don't think a year, maybe it's 2 years from now, you're going to find a mineral exploration company that doesn't have that AI as a core part of its exploration strategy. My own prediction for the space, and obviously it's very self-serving for me to say this, I think investors are going to put a massive premium to the companies that use it well, or the alternative way to think about it is a massive discount to the companies that say we don't need AI, we can just keep finding stuff ourselves. I think you will have companies continue to find things. There is no shortage of discoveries that are made that have absolutely no AI component. That doesn't mean that there's not a value add that comes from the AI insight, as well.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's that virtuous cycle, right? We start, AI gets deployed more discoveries, more data, more trust, more capital. More data helps the AI get better.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat.
And don't underestimate, like, you can't think of the industry as a place as like there's not an absolute amount of capital. like to your point, more capital is actually really important.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's $1 million to test your project, but because we often get asked, well, can you find the same things with less money now? And it's not how you can think about how to quantify what we do. It's more like you're given a tool that if it shows the potential of your project in an unbiased way, can help you raise more money. So ultimately, it's not helping you. The efficiency of the drill hole is better, but the absolute thing, you might be spending $10 million instead of $1 million, which actually, I know that we're probably an hour and a half over time or so. One of the really interesting things we're seeing is right now you're seeing onshoring of everybody wants to kind of produce the metals themselves. And there's a lot of metals that we've historically just relied on China for, both from a place of extraction and also processing to turn it into the medicals that we need for things like antimony and indium and kind of random elements that we don't even know where they're from. A lot of those minerals exist within our byproducts from the mines that we have today and the deposits we have today. Right. We never really looked at them. Now you can take an entire data set for, say, a gold mine and run it for antimony. And if you have all of the data ingested already, it's an hour-long exercise to run an antimony model on it versus a gold model. Mm-hmm. What you're going to see is a lot of these critical minerals that we're looking for are sitting within, it's not even about finding new deposits. They're actually sitting within existing deposits.
Maximizing your current asset.
Just looking at it through a whole new lens. And I think that's yet another wave of that we're going to see completely unlocked. And I think that's going to happen. To be honest, that's the easiest one because you don't need to make a new discovery for that. You just need to kind of go back through the data you already have and see what's there.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I knew this would be a good conversation. I think, I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. I think we kept us close to in the arena, but I know we definitely took a few detours, but hopefully it's been valuable. So yeah, thanks again for being here, Steve. This has been such an important conversation. We're not just talking about AI. We're talking about how tech can lead to faster discovery. Just flip the paradigm on its head. We've accepted in the mineral exploration industry a status quo for so long without really questioning why is it this way. And the pressure we're putting out there against processes that we know have taken months and we're seeing Dora deliver in weeks, I think that can extend even further. And we'll look forward to more and more of these conversations. We have several more in the can. Again, you're not going to be listening to just Steve and I, though we will hop in these chairs as much as we can. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about what we're doing at VRIFY, especially around Dora, which is our AI-assisted mineral discovery platform that puts the power of AI directly in the hands of geoscientists, we'll drop a link in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment. If it's about any of my takes on vibe exploration, be kind or be honest. And we really look forward to our next game-changing conversation on the VRIFY Podcast.